Hi guys, Naeem here. Welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone's doing okay. As you can tell, my hair has changed once again. Last week I was ginger and this week I seem to be, I don't know, red, orange. Something's going on here. Something's happening. I'm not too sure what, but something. For today's video, I thought we'd change it up a bit and I thought we'd review a TV show that I just finished watching. Now, how do I describe this TV show? Because it has to be one of the best TV shows I've seen in my entire existence. And I've been alive for 25 years and I've been watching TV for about 15 of those, so I think I can say that I know what a good TV show is. That's subjective, but yeah. This show is so good that I literally was crying, laughing, screaming at the TV the whole time I was watching it. Okay, I don't know where to begin exactly, but I will say that this show has almost everything I was looking for as a viewer in 2020. I'm of course talking about Little Fires Everywhere, starring Kerry Washington and Reese Witherspoon. It airs on Hulu and I'm definitely impressed with this show. I absolutely loved it. I loved every single episode. I didn't think there was an episode that didn't kind of entertain me to the fullest. I was at the edge of my seat the whole time. And it's one of those shows that keep you guessing all the way until the end because I didn't know exactly what we were in for, but those last two episodes really blew it out the park for me and I thought the performances from everybody were amazing. Little Fires Everywhere stars Kerry Washington. I love Kerry Washington. I used to watch her in Scandal and I feel like she can do no wrong. It also stars Reese Witherspoon. We all know Reese Witherspoon. She's Legally Blonde, the one and only, of course. And I feel like these two powerhouse actresses coming together really did make for some good TV. So the show is described as an exploration of secrets, the nature of art and identity, the ferocious pull of motherhood, and the danger in believing rules can avert disaster. So a little backlog for you guys who haven't seen the show out there, and warning, this will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen the show, please click off and go and watch it, and then once you're done, come back and we can all talk about it. So, the show surrounds Kerry Washington's character, I believe her name is Mia Warren, and she moves into a new town called Shaker. Once moving into town, Kerry Washington's character meets Reese Witherspoon's character called Elena Richardson. Now, Elena Richardson is basically your wholesome mother. She seems to be perfect on the exterior with, I don't know, the amazing parental skills we all think a perfect suburban mum would have. She has 4 children, I believe. Normally with a lot of TV shows, you'll rarely see the younger cast kind of come through and make an impact. We usually focus on more of the core characters. But I will say that all of the younger actors in this show did an amazing job at portraying their parts. All of these smaller characters really did contribute to the wider storyline, which covered so much. It seems to be a very relevant show for 2020 because maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, a show like this may not have been able to come to fruition because of the subject matter. And when I say that, I mean the show seems to tackle subjects that a lot of people aren't consciously aware of, now kind of collectively focusing on things that we never focused on before, such as classism and inequality and racism. And while these things are nothing new and they've always been a part of history, I feel like now, as society is kind of like going into the new woke kind of era, we have to be kind of aware of things that are happening in our society, things that we don't often look at. So I feel like when I watched this show, there were so many little details that kind of referred to all of the little social, political kind of instances that are happening right now in the world. So I was quite taken aback by a lot of the scenes in the show, and I didn't expect it to go that full force. But I'm not complaining because their finale was absolutely flawless. I feel like that was the best episode of TV I'd watched in a long time. Can we talk about Reese Witherspoon, please, and how amazingly she's doing these last couple of years? Apart from being in Big Little Lies on HBO and The Morning Show on Apple TV, which are both really good shows as well. So I feel like she's taken no prisoners this year when it comes to getting those roles. So Reese Witherspoon found the book Little Fires Everywhere that the show is inspired from. Reese then took the book to Kerry Washington, who I'm assuming loved it as well. And then the two came together to try and create an adaptation for TV audiences. Now, in the book, the author didn't write Kerry Washington's character as a black woman, but with the two actresses and their modern interpretation of the show, they decided that it would be a good idea to portray that sort of outsider role from a black woman's perspective, and they tried to portray the experiences from two very polar opposite characters. And I'm guessing they wanted to adapt the book into a show that was almost very current and very relevant with what's going on in today's world regarding classism, racism, etc. Now that we're in the age of social awareness, I know that a lot of audiences out there are vying for a lot more original content and to avoid those Hollywood cliches, those overdone narratives that we've all seen. So it's really refreshing to have a show depicting a story that I have never experienced before, but then also one that I can relate to, you know, being a gay person of color in this day and age has its pros and its cons. While it's very accepting and it's very inclusive now to kind of be, I don't know, a minority, there's still a lot of stigma and a lot of history that goes into it. So yeah, this show did really well at explaining that. It didn't just throw things in your face assuming that the audience wouldn't be smart enough to pick up on those things, but it kind of just threaded in tiny social kind of biases and subconscious biases that we have within, and it kind of just threaded them very subtly into the storylines without directly addressing them, which I really thought was quite a smart move. Kerry Washington's character has a daughter called Pearl, who's played by Lexi Underwood in the show. So the storyline with Reese Witherspoon's children and Kerry Washington's children is very interesting because it touches on a lot of tiny little nuances that a lot of us don't focus on these days, while the main core storyline did focus on the opposition between Kerry and Reese's characters, which came to blows in the last two episodes. And for those who have seen it, you will know that it was definitely an explosive finale. I loved every single minute of it. I thought it was flawlessly done, and they answered questions that they set the seed for in the first few episodes, and you didn't think that they would come up again, but then in the final few episodes they really did do well at rounding everything up and tying it all together seamlessly. Okay, I'm going to stop rambling, but I want to talk about a few of my favourite moments throughout the series, starting with how they portrayed Kerry Washington's character initially in the beginning of the series. I went in not knowing much about the show, and I wondered why Kerry Washington's character was so reserved, why she was so hardy and she didn't seem to have any sympathy. And only later on throughout the series do we realise, because of her experiences, being somebody that didn't have the best financial situation growing up or the most stable upbringing, and I feel like that was the reason why her character was so hard. I find it quite interesting because towards the end of the series is when they switched roles almost, and you found that Kerry's character became the more empathetic, the more understanding character, and then Reese's character kind of reverted into this intolerant, impatient kind of woman, whereas in the beginning of the series I depicted Reese as this very nice, kind of wholesome mother. She can't do no wrong, really. She seems to have raised her kids right. She seems to have the nice house, the nice career, and I feel that was done on purpose. So in the beginning of the series, they really wanted you to kind of not empathize with Kerry's character and wonder why she was so kind of mean and why she was so hard. And then Reese's character seemed so nice, and then towards the end of the series it just went completely on its head. Episode 6 was the one where we found out why these women are like they are and what led them to become the people they are today. The flashback sequences where we saw Mia's upbringing and we saw Elena's upbringing as well and what they had experienced, I felt like it perfectly summed up why these ladies are like they are. As we can see in the flashback episode, the younger Reese, played by Anna Sophia Robb, seems to not be happy with the life that she chose. And you see that Reese's character realizes this later on in life, where she sees that her sense of control has kind of suffocated and kind of done the opposite intention of what she wanted, which was the perfect life, the perfect family, and this overbearing expectations she had on her children and she had for her own life, where she really unraveled and made us realize that it doesn't matter how much you want your life to be perfect, the harder you try to control, the more it's not going to go your way at all. And the final episode with her children doing the act of rebelling against her, that was symbolic. You really saw this sense of control depicted with her youngest daughter Isabel and the relationship that they have. Isabel is a part of the LGBTQ plus community, and clearly her mother really didn't want to come to terms with it. She wanted her to dress a certain way. She wanted her to act a certain way for the family photos that they would take every year. She really didn't like her defiance to the status quo that Reese's character really wanted to kind of emphasize. Reese's character really had a sense of perfection and really built this idea of what a perfect life would be in her head. And her youngest daughter didn't fit in with the idea of perfect. And we saw their relationship come to an explosive end in the last episode, which I found was very emotional. I cried personally, I'm not gonna lie. I was like on the shoulder of my boyfriend, just like weeping tears, because it really took you to that place where you're literally just up here, your emotions are up here, because they really didn't hold back when it comes to those uncomfortable, really raw moments. Some of the acting scenes between Reese and her children and Kerry Washington and her daughter were so amazing. It felt really, really, really real. I also like the parallels between the two daughters. So because Isabel was an outsider and she was different and she didn't seem to fit into the status quo, Isabel seemed to gravitate towards Kerry Washington's character, who was that very artistic, alternative type of person, and seemed to reflect more of things that she had within her than she saw within her own mother. Whereas in Kerry's daughter, Pearl seemed to gravitate towards Reese's character, who represented that very stable, perfect white picket fence kind of life that she's always craved, and she hasn't been given since her mother always kept them moving from place to place throughout the years, and she's never had a stable place that she can call home. So you'd see that Pearl would often go to Elena's house and want to immerse herself in the lifestyle and what it meant to have a stable home, whereas Izzy would always go to Mia's house and want to indulge herself into the artistic, the more abstract kind of way of thinking, almost reflecting the way that they think within their minds as well, because Isabel, being a lesbian, wouldn't have her mind so set in such a conformative role. She doesn't seem to fit or want to fit into society's structures and boundaries. She felt a lot more at home within the abstract world of Mia's character. And you could see that reflected, because when Mia leaves, spoilers, when Mia leaves in the end, she's very distraught, and a piece of her that she really saw, a piece of herself that she saw within Kerry Washington had gone. Anyway, I'm not going to ramble too much because there's so much to cover throughout the show. I really could sit here for hours just talking about all the tiny details that this show did so well. But I really did enjoy the parental-child relationship and the parallels and the reflections between the two. I thought that was done amazingly. One of the main prominent plot lines from this show was Bibi's character. Now, she was a Chinese immigrant who is meant to represent, I guess, the immigrant experience and the lack of privilege, and also to tackle motherhood while being in a situation that is not very fortunate. A lot of you that have watched the show will be aware of her storyline, and I feel like it represented the disparity between what privilege can afford you and what it cannot. So as we know, Bibi had to give up her baby after not being able to afford to feed her. She unfortunately had to make a decision where she had to choose either to keep her baby and be a mother, or give her up and ensure that she can have a life which is without struggle and without hunger and without all of the things that being underprivileged affords you. While we could definitely empathise with both mothers, as you know, Kerry Washington's character did say that in the very last episode, where she mentions that they both would make very good mothers, but only one of them is the baby's real mum. And that is very true, because I don't think there was a good or bad side in this show. I feel like it really just wanted to portray the differences, like the different paths that people can walk. Being a mother from two very different backgrounds is gonna have a different effect on you. Linda was able to afford her legal fees, whereas Bibi wasn't even able to get that without Kerry Washington's financial help. It really showed you the kind of like differences within the two mothers. Linda, the certain privilege she had, and then Bibi, the lack of privilege that she had, but while also kind of portraying the pain that they both experienced as mothers. So I feel like the show did that really well. It's kind of hard because when you watch a show, you're kind of looking for the bad characters and you're looking for the good characters, and you want to know who we should empathize with and who we shouldn't. But this show really wanted to kind of show the differences between characters, but not paint anybody in a villainous or a heroic kind of light. And I thought they did that really well. Same with Mia and Elena. They looked very black and white, no pun intended, in the beginning. They wanted you to kind of question Kerry's motives in the beginning, why she was being so mean. And then after the flashback episode, you see why. You understand why she is like she is. And then same with Reese's character too. Like, towards the end of the series, you see why she is like she is. And that was reflected in the children burning down the house, because with Elena accepting responsibility in the very last scene while she's in the ambulance, and then they ask her who burnt down the house, she looks at the officer and she says, I did it. It was me. That was basically her character acknowledging and accepting finally her part that she played within all of this, because throughout the series she really wanted to place blame on Kerry Washington, or she wanted to place blame on everybody else but herself, because she really thought she had nothing to do with the unraveling of the situation. So her accepting responsibility for the house burning down in the end was her finally looking at herself in the mirror and being like, do you know what? I had a part to play in this as well. It wasn't just everybody else. It wasn't just this black woman who I tried to help all the time. It was almost like she did really start to turn the mirror on herself. And I really like that 360 too. They left the storyline with her and Isabel on almost a very sad note, because Reese's character was very distraught. As we know, her and Izzy's relationship was left up in the air, and Izzy had run away from home. And we really see Reese break down, and she took that character there. She really did take that character there, because I haven't seen Reese really play that raw role before. I've seen her do the Legally Blonde kind of ditzy, fun, loving kind of role, but she hasn't done that gritty kind of uncomfortable portrayal of a character. And seeing her let loose and seeing her come out and scream that she did in the end, that was amazing. I feel like the dad was good, but he really represented the most neutral character throughout the show. Even his own children, they had more of a pivotal kind of role that the writers might have been trying to portray, whereas in the dad, he didn't seem to kind of like stray outside the lines too much. So I really like that they kind of kept him a neutral character. It was quite crazy to find out halfway through the season as well that Mia seemed to be a very successful artist, and that she was featured in the New York Times, and that we all had these portrayals or depictions of what we thought she was before we actually got to find out. So we, I guess as the audience, were meant to imagine Mia, and Reese's character saw Mia as this underprivileged, maybe low income person of colour who needed the help, who needed the assistance. And I really enjoyed the relationship between Mia and her tutor in the flashback episode, where we saw how she kind of developed her career and how she became who she was today. The relationship between her and her mentor was really sweet, and it was really sensual almost. And the fact that they kind of had a romantic relationship really blew my mind. And I was like, okay, this is why Kerry Washington's character is the way she is, because look at what she's gone through. Like, look at the people that she's met, and look at the experiences that she's had, and the relationships. It's so alternative and so different to what you would consider the suburban, typical status quo kind of family life. I personally like the speech about the uncanniness of art. So looking for something out there in the world that makes you feel uncomfortable, seeing an image or seeing something that evokes kind of a raw energy out of you and it being uncanny. I was touched by that. I was even considering enrolling in an art course after that. That's how much I really enjoyed it. I really liked seeing Elena's flashback too, and how she kind of decided how her life was going to go from such a young age. And then after growing up a bit and realizing that it might not have been everything she wanted. Like, I don't know if she really wanted to have that white picket fence, that perfect 4 children suburban life, and then her going back to the city to reunite with her old high school love really confirmed that she had those second thoughts about certain decisions that we all thought that she was so sure about. So in episode 6, the flashback episode, I feel like if we had not seen that, there would have been a lot left unsaid. Like, we would have watched this series as an audience and not understood fully why these characters were like they are. And I know I've said this 100 times already, so I do apologise to keep repeating myself. I've got like notes here to try and keep myself on track. Did you guys notice the tiny differences in the way that people are treated out there? When Izzy got on the bus and she was short 70 cents, that the bus driver didn't mind and she just let her on. Whereas when BB was 70 cents short for her milk for her baby, she was met with like verbal abuse and told to just get out of the shop. I like that because that was the writers showing us the differences in situations between people who have privilege and people that don't have privilege. Whereas in BB had to give up her baby and had to give up on being a mother because she was short 70 cents, whereas in others maybe afforded privilege and the doors are opened for the same exact situation. And I liked that too. So that really kind of like showed us how people are treated differently in the world. The relationship between the children I liked too. The oldest daughter, Lexi, I felt like her and her boyfriend's relationship, her boyfriend was African American, and his storyline was kind of just really putting a mirror up to her and reflecting the differences. I felt like Lexi's part was definitely there to kind of represent the obliviousness that some people will have to the walks of life and the stories from people that are not like them. And the fact that she wasn't aware of the mistakes that she made was another way of the writers telling us that a lot of people in society just do not see certain things, and they can kind of maybe take advantage of it or use it for their own gain. I personally loved everybody in the show. I loved all of the 4 of her children. I felt like they did, they really played their characters really well. I loved Kerry Washington's daughter as well, Pearl. She was amazing too. I felt like their storylines were a lot more innocent than the parental storylines. They were a lot more, a lot more innocent, and I enjoyed that because we don't want the children to get into all of those. I'm rambling now. Okay, I know this video has been all over the place and I've just been here, there and everywhere, but I'm going to round it up now. But there's so much to talk about in this show and so many things I've never seen done before. Okay, who else loved the final few episodes where Reese's character and Kerry's character just came head to head and they had that verbal showdown? It was absolute TV gold and I loved it. The way they just kind of like shaded each other so like effortlessly. I really love that scene where Elena went to Mia's apartment and asked her to be out by the morning, and then it kind of went into this whole revelation of exposing each other's secrets and really letting each other know what they thought. And I was wondering when that was going to happen because there was so much tension between the two all the way through the episode. I was just waiting for it to blow up, and I was so on the edge of my seat that I was wondering if they were just going to fight. Like, I was wondering if they were just going to be at each other's necks. But the sophistication of this show is that it doesn't resort to like physical, mindless violence. It's like an intellectual back and forth. And they really just got into it and let each other know what they think. They really did. And it was amazing. The way Reese's eyes and Kerry's eyes were just pierced onto each other, and they were just like, well, your daughter was doing this and your daughter was doing that, and but wait, did you know this? And it was just like, give them the Emmys now. Like, give Kerry Washington, give Reese Witherspoon her Emmy. I feel like it's decided, it's done. This is my top TV show of this year, and I would probably say of the last few years as well. I feel like it's a perfect series as it is. To almost kind of like make a season 2 and trying to stretch and reach for kind of plot lines that don't make sense, that would be a disservice. I personally loved it. Yeah. Is that all now? Am I finished? I think I'm finished. This was a mess, so I was just rambling. And look at the graininess of the camera now. This is like in 240p. What is this? 2007. Anyway, listen, I'm going to leave you guys. I will say I recommend watching the show a lot. Little Fires Everywhere. It streams on Hulu. And I have got not a bad thing to say about this show. I feel like it was done expertly. It touched on so many different topics that a lot of people are not aware of. And in 2020, with the age of bloody Trump and politics and so much shit going on out there in the world, a show like this is as relevant as it gets, you know? It kind of discusses things that we don't usually talk about. It talks about class inequality, it talks about racial inequality, it talks about the story of being a mother, and yeah. I feel like I might do a part 2 as well on this because there's some things I didn't cover. I'm going to love you and leave you guys. So yeah, thank you for watching. So let me know in the comments what you want me to review next. And yeah, until then, I shall see you soon. Ciao.